circle quiz too, because it's asking which quadrant theta lies. Whenever I see something like sine is greater than, okay, whenever I see sine of, I don't know, this is not fun. All right, now let's try again. Whenever we see greater than 0 or less than 0, all it's telling us is that sine of theta is positive and then cosine of theta is negative. So we're trying to think of the different quadrants. If you're thinking unit circle and a point on the unit circle, an x, y in this quadrant would be positive, positive. So cosine is positive and sine is positive. Does that make sense? So that's what you're thinking of. But if I go in this quadrant, a point here would be negative x, positive y. Oh, now we have to remember, sine is opposite, which would be like the y value. Cosine is adjacent, like if I was to draw a triangle. So my sine is my opposite, or my y. And my cosine is my adjacent, or my x. So cosine is x, sine is y. So I need a negative x and a positive y. Oh, that's this one. Negative x, positive y. So only in quadrant 2 would my sines be positive and my cosines be negative. Does that make sense? Yeah. Joe? Kind of. Because, well, Joe, I don't think it's quite as easy, though, since there are 2 different ones. So where is sine positive? Well, it could be here in the first quadrant, or sine is positive in the second quadrant. So then you could go ahead and think of, okay, it's not quadrant 3 or 4 because I need sine to be positive. Cosine is negative. Well, not there. Must be there. So yeah, you could have gotten there. That's true. That's true. I won't say that's a bad idea. Anything besides 21, though? 29. No, go ahead. They're working on the review. They're fine, Selma. Let's get your questions answered. 29 asks us a little bit differently. It gives us a value and says find all 6. So by all 6, it means sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cotangent. That's what it means by all 6. Constraint is a snazzy math word. Actually, even honors asked about these ones. It's weird that only Selma's asking. Constraint is a weird math word. It just means like a restriction, a limitation, a characteristic that needs to be true. So up here when we see secant is equal to -2 and sine is negative, sine's going to be negative in either quadrants 3 or 4. All are positive, so sine's not negative. Sine is positive, so not that one. Either of these ones, this is true. And then they also tell me secant is -2. There are 2 ways of thinking about this. One way is who is secant? He's hypotenuse over chosha, adjacent, sha. Or you could think about secant is equal to 1 over cosine. Either way works. Because this way says go straight hypotenuse adjacent. This way says get the cosine and flip it. And you could think about cosine being x. So when they tell me that secant is -2, I could say secant is -2 over 1, because I can always put over 1. So then I could say this is my hypotenuse and this is my adjacent. I could say that as far as the sides. And if cosine is negative, I know not this quadrant, I know this quadrant. Which helps me because then I could make a triangle and say, okay, I know I'm in 3rd quadrant because sine's negative and cosine is negative. So then I could go ahead and throw in my hypotenuse and my adjacent. And I need to find all 6 trig functions. So I want sine, cosine, cosecant, secant. I know this one. They gave it to me. I know this one because it flips it, so it'd be 1 over 2. these ones are the ones that I need more of the triangle, and I can do it by Pythagorean theorem. Because I can do square root of 4 minus 1 is 3. Oh, it actually ends up being a pi over 3. So this would be 4 pi over 3. They didn't tell me that, but I can tell from geometry. It's a 60 degree, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. Once I do Pythagorean theorem, now I have opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So I can do SO, cosine, rationalizing, and then TOA would be negative root 3, and cotangent flips. So I would find these ones, and then I would flip them. But how I got it was I looked at this. Secant is, or you could have gone and said cosine is, if that's easier, and you could say adjacent. So I had to put over 1 and then flip, and then I know this one, and I know that one, and I use Pythagorean to find that one. Then I can just do SOHCAHTOA. Yeah, Chosha. Anybody else need anything else? 39. Okay, this is kind of like it could be a unit circle quiz question, right? In the sense of they're only asking us for one. Evaluate the trig function. So unlike the rest of homework where it's like, hey, find all 6, it says, I don't care about all 6. I really just care about him. And it's on a quadrant, which is also weird. But think 3 pi over 2 is 1.5. And 1.5 will put me right here, which has the point 0, negative 1. If you were in the cheater chart, you'd be looking secant at cosine, which counts down. Square root 3, 2, 1. The pi over 2 would be that one, which is 0, or the x is 0. However you think about it, secant is 1 over cosine. And whether you remember that cosine is the x in the circle or whether it's the 0 in the cheater chart, it's one of those weird undefined ones. Remember, whenever 0 is below, undefined. If 0 was above, it would be 0. Yeah. Sign doesn't matter because positive, negative, no difference. Anything else from homework? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys, because you still have, 5 minutes, a little bit less? You can either, right now, talk to someone else about, unit circle. Can you quiz me? Can you, you can get out a blank piece of paper. You can be playing with it. You can ask me a question about the unit circle. Be like, I made this mistake. What's going on? Or you can work on your review. I'm going to put up the review on the screen for those of you that don't have a book and you want to start. You already wrote down in your homework spiral. But can you guys remind me really quickly? What is my advice for tomorrow before you come to class? There are 2 things. What's one thing you should do? What, Matthew? Okay, yeah, put your phones in the tray for a quiz. But as far as being ready for class tomorrow, maybe. That's not how everyone studies, so maybe figure out a way for you, right? Study the unit circle, and what else? Work on the review as much as possible so you can ask me questions where you get stuck. Okay, work on the review as much as possible so that way you can ask me questions if you get stuck. I don't know what else to do. I'm going to open the door because you guys are all, I don't know, barely here. Did the unit circle quiz really kill you guys that much? All right. All right, you guys have the review written down. You can go ahead and start right now, or you can be looking at your notes unit circle, trying to figure out, oh dear, how do I study? Remember, the back of your homework spiral also has those pretend quizzes. the pop quizzes that we did last week, seeing if you could do the unit circle. Maybe practice writing the cheater chart over and over and over again. Maybe practice writing the first quadrant of the unit circle.